We have our next session, Farming Roots to Corporate Suits, The Rise of the Farm CEO, with Kristjan Hebert. Oh, Eureka's. So Kristjan Hebert is the president and CEO of the Hebert Group and managing partner of Hebert Grain Ventures, a 40,000-acre grain and oilseed operation in southeast Saskatchewan, Canada. He is also the co-founder of Amazon A Consulting, which provides custom design, leading accounting, and insurance solutions to producers, and Farm Coach, a business management coaching program for farmers. He is also the host of a popular podcast, The Truth About the Egg. Hebert obtained his CPA from Myers North Penny before returning to the family farm in 2008. Welcome, Kristjan.
Thank you. They always make me put acres in my thing, but to be honest, I don't really care. I think problems probably get defined at whatever acre you are, and that's really where the presentation came from. I don't do a whole bunch of farm shows anymore, actually. We don't farm that far from here. My 10 and 12-year-old wanted to watch me. My 10-year-old has the flu, and my 12-year-old had a hockey game get booked, so things didn't quite go as planned. But the theory behind the presentation is, I think, a lot of operations, no matter where you are in size, no matter where you are in age, have similar issues that we talk about every day at the kitchen table, every day in the office, or every day at the coffee shop, or wherever you go. So then how do we normalize discussing those, and what's the solution? And obviously, we focus pretty heavily on business consulting and process and people, and so there's the theory of the rise of the farm CEO. It really wasn't a rise. Farms are businesses. We sometimes don't always remember that, right? But it's Thursday. I know everybody's tired, but show of hands, how many people actually farm in the room? Almost everybody, right? Now, if you did a little bit of math, you don't need very many acres to have a $5 million operation. In the world of business, $5 million is big, right? You'll see in some stats further on, less than 10% of Canadians are entrepreneurs. So sometimes I think as farmers, we forget that we're business owners, that we're entrepreneurs, because we get so busy kind of in the day-to-day. So we do a lot of time, visiting to other businesses, to be honest, just stealing practice from them and finding ways to implement it into agriculture. And then we don't mind sharing it. Obviously, that's where the podcast came from. I don't like to travel a whole bunch because I got two kids that want a bunch of my time. So that's where the podcast came from. So here's why the presentation was made, the rise of the CEO, why we feel it's kind of the right way to go forward. I'm going to move some of this out of the way before I knock it over. I don't know if anybody in the room has ever heard any of these statements, but I spent 5 or 6 years at MNP. Obviously, we have our own operation, and then we have our own consulting company. But too many times, I've heard from producers, I've created a monster. And I'll actually admit that one was a conversation between my dad and I. If Dad was here, he's down in Mexico right now, but he would tell you wasn't really good at HR. In fact, maybe would flat out tell you he didn't like people 10 or 15 years ago. And so his answer was, I can't coach hockey anymore. I created a monster. So some stuff throughout the presentation, I'll try to tell you came right from us. Other stuff is from clients. I don't have time to coach kids' sports. I don't have time to attend my child's sports. The farm controls my calendar. That one ties back. So my definition of retirement is you completely control your own calendar. Nobody else does. You want to farm today, you farm. You want to go to your kids' sports today, you go to your kids' sports. Right? You want to work in the office, you work in the office. That's what I think retirement is, not being done work. My spouse is upset I'm not home enough. So I'm sure nobody in this room has got a call saying, hey, you said you're going to be home at 6 o'clock. It's 10:30 at night. Right? All the decisions, like I'm decisioned out today, my mental health. We've seen mental health really skyrocket. It's awesome how much more it's getting talked about. To be honest, I've been asked to talk about it a few times. I'm like the worst person on earth to talk about mental health. I'm not sure. I have bad ADHD, so I'm not sure I know what stress feels like. But I also have a lot of buddies I talk to fairly often that you can just see the life is sucked out of them. They're just tired, right? And then my favorite one, I don't know if any of us have heard our grandfather or grandmother use this statement, right? Like, it'll be better next week. It'll be better next year. It'll be better the next field. It'd be better when we decide to sell the cows. Sorry, cowboys in the room, I know they're worth a bunch of money right now, right? So then we can define the problem, and I would assume if we did a show of hands, who in the room's heard one of these or felt one of these? If you don't lift your hand, you're probably lying because we've done enough surveys to know already. So then we talk about the problem lots. We hear everybody talk about the problem lots. We see it all over Twitter, if you use Twitter, right? So then I always say that let's quit talking about problems. Let's work towards the cause. So we all have to decide if we should invest in our business or in the stock market or in ourselves or whatever, right? So I'm just going to ask you, would you invest in a business that had no strategic plan or long-term goals? What about a business that didn't do any roles and responsibilities, didn't even really focus on management, no performance reviews, no research and development with its competitors? This is getting old, right? No strategic, no SOPs, those are boring. No budgets or cost of production analysis. None of this stuff. What about they sell all their stuff without even knowing their cost of production? Now, of course, I realize everybody in this room does all this stuff perfect, and we're definitely talking about neighbors and people that farm in different countries, right? But we'll pretend it's them. Would anybody invest in that company? Right, if Elon Musk said he didn't do any of this stuff, would anybody give him any money? Not a chance in hell. And yet, I steal this information from some good friends. So the top guy's Danny Kleinfelter. He passed away a couple years ago. I see Roberta's in the crowd. She reminded me my very first presentation ever was in Saskatoon, and Danny was out trimming a brush or a hedge for his wife, and he fell off a ladder and phoned me to see if I'd come present for him in Saskatoon. That's the only reason I do this. But he was a mentor of mine. He sat on our farm advisory board. The bottom guy's Dick Whitman. They run a program out of Texas A&M called TPAP, the Executive Program for Agriculture Producers. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. So I went back in like 08, 09, and my two top managers they just finished, and we're going to start kind of rolling through the rest of the crew here in a year or two. You actually have to fill out a scorecard before you get there. The scary thing is the marks have actually got worse the last 20 years. So first of all, this is a group of people willing to spend, I don't even know what it costs anymore, $5,000 to $7,000 US to go down for a week, 2 years in a row. So they're investing in themselves. And the scores have decreased. So less than 15% of those farms that go to TPAP have set a strategic goal, right? Look down at the bottom. Only 40% know their cost of production before they start selling their grain. One of my favorite ones, only 20% have a policy for dividing earnings and withdrawing capital. If any of you farm with your family, do you think that might cause an issue? All you guys must get along really good. Everyone just has as much money as they want, right? Of course it's an issue, right? 25% track key financial and operational ratios. So I would argue the cause of our problem that we talked about on the first few slides is that we're too many of us are running our farm like a way of life and hoping it's a business instead of running it like a business so that it is a good way of life. And I'm not saying, so I think the average score when I looked this year when Evan and Jeff got back was like 53%. I went and dug mine up, so in 2008, we got 60%, so we weren't much different. And as of 2022, we could say yes to everything. It took 14 years. So I'm not saying it happens easy. Are you going to take a little bit of time every year to focus on it? Now, everybody's going to be different. Someone's going to say to me, we're small acres, we don't need to worry about that kind of stuff. And I would say, but there will be pieces within that you do need to focus on. Everybody's focus will be different, but that's the hard part. You have to figure out why you're going to do it. It won't be the same as me. But I was talking to a neighbor of mine, a lot of respect for him. Actually, pretty sure I used to work on his stuff when I was at MNP. They're settled in at their acres, they do a great job of it. We're growing. We can still have great conversations. I respect what he's doing. He respects what we're doing. Two completely different whys. We're both really focused on return on investment, though. That's probably why we get along. But what's your why? What's everybody else's why, right? So this is the part where I'll share a bit about myself. This was really my why. When my dad and I had the conversation that he'd created a monster and he couldn't coach me in hockey anymore, I was maybe 12, 11. I didn't even know then that I liked agriculture. I liked farming, I thought, but I really liked it in university because I could come home and spray, and Dad gave me a bonus for custom spraying so I could take my girlfriend to the keg instead of buying her McDonald's. Like that was it. And then when I went to Myers Norris Penny, I actually understood that it was the business of farming that I really liked. But that conversation with my dad hung with me forever. Then I saw this graph, I forget which book I was reading. So the one on this side is the average amount of time you get to spend with your kids. The one on the far side is the average amount of time you get to spend with your spouse. Anybody that has kids, obviously, you usually have them in that 25 to 30 range. So somewhere between 30 and 45 is probably the highest amount of time you get to spend with your kids. I quit Myers Norris Penny in 2008. I can't even remember how old I'd have been, 26 or 27. We had kids when I was 29. This was what set the deadline on me why I wasn't willing to run it the same. I wasn't going to look my kid in the face and say I couldn't come watch hockey because I'd let the farm take over my life. And I don't blame my dad for it. He talked to me about it. Dad still works with me side by side every day, right? He's pumped with what we're doing. He loves people now because you can get so much done. It was just something we had to work on together to move forward. And that was one thing that I wasn't willing to do. So it forced us. That's why I got pissed off when I did the TPAP score and forced us to start working on little things. The other 2 points, I just made them at the bottom, was that one thing that my dad and I did agree on is our farm would never be sold. I realize never and always are two words you shouldn't use because you might have to walk back on them, blah, blah, blah. 99.9% chance our farm will never be sold. However, in nowhere in there did I say there's a 100% chance my kids are going to take it over. I don't know that. My goal is to build something interesting enough they might want to. I'd like them to go to Harvard. I just pick Harvard because everybody knows it. The real reason I want them to go there is you meet a whole bunch of cool people. And I think network is what really builds your business. So I want them to go build a whole new network. And then I do joke, like if you go to Harvard and screw up and you meet someone there and get married, you're probably all right. It's not a bad risk management plan, right? But my big goal is I have an operation that they're interested to come back to. So will they give me an application no different than Goldman Sachs or Tesla or whoever's interesting at the time? But if they don't come back, I don't want it sold. So then what? Well, then it has to be sustainable enough to operate without a family member. So we need to be able to hire a CEO. We need to be able to pay dividends. We need to have the land base to be paid off by then. And I couldn't afford a CEO at the acres we were at. It was part of my whole why. It had nothing to do with acres. It had to do with I wanted to spend time with my kids, and I don't ever want to sell it. So what was our path to get there? And then obviously the one at the bottom is this one I just told you about the kids. I wanted to give them the opportunity to go to Harvard. I don't care where it is. Go somewhere different. Meet people. Go work somewhere else. So you can come teach us a whole bunch of stuff. But I want something interesting, they might come back. So if we all know the problem, we said the cause is that most of us get too busy to work on business things. And the way I word that, so I'll have the odd person say, Kristjan, you're pretty hard on farmers. You more or less tell them they won't work on their business. So, yeah, but you know what? I find it's more comparable to a minor sports parent. Anyone in the room seen crazy minor sports parents? Geez, you guys must live in a different place than me. But it's not they're actually crazy. They're just so passionate about their kids that they do things they wouldn't typically do. We're so passionate about our farms, and the only way we know to keep them is to put our boots on and go to work and make sure the list gets done. That doesn't necessarily mean we prioritize the most important thing we should do today, but we did go to work. So we get blinded by passion at times. So then, Kristjan, where's the problem? We agree, we all need our own why. What kind of a journey would we go on to maybe start making steps to improvement? And as I said, everybody's going to do it different. I don't think my way's the highway. In fact, I've seen some phenomenal small acre farms. One of my favorite farms I've ever seen in the U.S. has a turkey barn. They're only about 1,800 acres. They have a section of organic, a section in transition alfalfa, and a section of conventional. And it pukes money. It's phenomenal. Business practice I had never seen until I was down doing some consulting down there. Right? So find the way you want to do it and do it that way. Don't copy somebody. Do it your way. I'm going to go through some stuff we did and that we've seen clients do so that hopefully you have an idea or two when you go back home. I guess I'll go back. So I'm going to spend quite a bit of time on the mindset shift, why I think you should do this, and a lot of it's to do with just the way you think about your farm. We'll do a little bit of time on what I call the legacy plan. The one thing pretty much every farm has in common, they want it to transition. In a perfect world, they want it to transition. They want grandkids, they want kids, they want everything, right? The legacy plan. So how do we have long-term vision? So when you hear all these consultants say you need a vision and you need a mission and you need a strategic plan, no, you don't. You just need to tell them I want it to be in my family forever. That's my legacy plan, right? So we have a statement that hangs on our wall. I call it the legacy statement or the sustainability statement. All the marketing companies tried to steal sustainability from us after. My goal, I want to leave the land, the financial statements, the community, and the industry in a better state by the time the next CEO takes over from me. That's it. Right? And I would say everybody in the room probably has a goal somewhat similar. It might be worded different. So that's what we call the legacy plan. Time, brains, and money, labor, power, and machinery. But I got a simple formula in any single business. There's only three things that matter: time, brains, and money. Who's going to do the work? Who's going to think about what work we're doing? And who's got the money to make sure we can operate? It doesn't have to be confusing, right? I can show you 20-page business plans from consultants and they're a waste of money. Three things: time, brains, and money. And you think about that, succession plan, right? When you first come home, and I was one of them, you come with lots of ideas. Dad, I can do this better than you. Guess what? Your dad or your mom forget more about farming every day than you know. So when you first get home, you're the time. You're young, and you're strong, and you're broke. So go to work, right? And learn from them. But also, you bring a lot of energy. But the other thing is the older generation has more money than you. So I don't know, I actually like a bank that ends in the last name Hebert a lot better than I do FCC or CIBC. So remember that, right? Time, brains, and money is what runs every business, and which part, and as you transition through those things. So at Farmer Coach, that's our one consulting education program. We walk through this to try and help people. The definition of farmer, you own and operate a farm, right? And we all like to play this card. I still do it, right? I'll do a presentation in downtown Toronto. What do you do, Kristjan? I'm just a farmer, because I don't really want to talk to them. In general, I don't like big crowds. Kind of don't like people a whole bunch, right? So I'm just a farmer. But really, right, the definition of an entrepreneur is a person who organizes and operates a business, taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so. I'm sorry, everybody. You throw $400 to $500 an acre in the ground every year and hope that it comes up and pays you back. I thought blackjack addictions were bad. Ours are worse. But we can have a plan, right? So then this is the process we walk everybody through. So the outside is kind of how I think life cycles work for people. I don't care if you're a farmer, if you're just some kid going to the job market, the first thing you chase is money. Right? We all want to go from when we had to eat Ichiban in university to being able to go to the keg to one day, having that car that we want. Everybody's the same. We chase money. What do we teach ourselves when we chase money? We say yes to too much because we want to feel important. We want more money, right? Eventually, you get enough money that you figure out that the number one thing you can buy is time. Right? Time is the number one asset in the world. The more of it you can buy, the better. Right? There's only two ways to buy time. That's people and process. Only two ways. Right? So then when we start to get time figured out, we're like, geez, I might actually feel a little bit bored tonight because I've been busy so long. Then we actually start to look for purpose. Why are we doing what we do? Why do we work where we work? Why are we chasing 17 hockey tournaments? Maybe 2 would have been enough and we should have went skiing. But you start to have those conversations. My argument back is, and like I said, it took me 15 years to figure this out. I wish 15 years ago I could have talked to myself today and said, maybe I should do this backwards. Why don't I try and figure out my purpose first, what I want to do, and then only say yes to things that help my purpose that chase money because I was broke, so I couldn't just find time. But we could go purpose, money, and then time, and it would change our life. So the way to do that, as I said, most of us start out as an employee on our farm, right? Or where we work, etc. The goal is, you move to a business owner. So that means you're making enough money on your operation that you actually invest back in the business. So I take a lot of heat on social media. The specific blog that started it all is I said, Old MacDonald went bankrupt, so let's quit talking about him. And I got lit up. Cities lit me up. Farmers lit me up. You don't care about small farms. I use the title on purpose. My argument is, and this is what pisses me off, Stats Can says there's 186,000 farms. So then when I'm in Ottawa trying to negotiate on policy, they say less than 20% of you soil test. This is the sustainability argument. And I say that's ridiculous. And then they show me the stats. But less than 20% of farms soil test, 85+% of acres soil test, but they use the stats against us. You need $10,000 of gross revenue to be a farm in Canada, $1,000 in the US. So there's a lot of people that try to get 10,000 gross to buy some purple fuel and write some home office expenses off. But then it affects us in the policy argument. So when I said Old MacDonald's bankrupt, what I meant was, how do we go from employee, or I would argue self-employed, and you're the only person that works there, nobody else. No kids involved, no spouse helping you, no friends, no employees. It's the same thing. How do we move to business owner? That means we've actually got some money to put back in our business. So I just did math. The average business makes somewhere between 7.7 and 26% of gross revenue as net profit. So if you make $1 million, some businesses would only about 7.7% of that, right? The better ones are 16 to 25 net profit. So $160,000 to $250,000 of profit. Now most people haven't included their own wage in that, so you got to pay yourself. You probably got to pay a little bit of debt that you don't have calculated right, and then hopefully have a little bit of money left in your business. So I just use 16%, $1 million times 16% is $160,000. By the time Mr. Trudeau takes his share, that's what about a family of 4 needs to live on. So if you're not over $1 million in revenue, you don't have any money left to put in your business. So you've barely moved into business owner. That was what the whole blog was about. Now we put a splashy title on there so it pissed people off and whatever, but it was to get the point across. And then how do we move from a business owner to an entrepreneur? So that means that you're past that point in economic units, and the majority of your income is being invested back into your business, back into your people, back into process, back into infrastructure. So that's that first circle. So then the internal circle is what explains that. That's really where we go from, I'm just a farmer by myself. I make enough money for a job. That's my job. Nothing wrong with that. Second one is, once you have a little extra money pass by in food, and the car, what's the first thing we do as farms? We buy land. We have a real estate addiction, right? Nobody else in the room likes land? Yeah. My wife says I don't want any more land unless it touches what I farm or it's inside the circle of what I have, because I like big fields. But it's what we do. We take our profits and we invest it in land early in our career. Then we see the odd time transition. Some people say, I'm going to get all the debt paid off on my land and I'm going to operate debt-free, and that's what I want. The next person buys more land. The next person says, I want to have just as much money in the stock market as I have in real estate because that's my hedge. Or maybe you want real estate in downtown Toronto or downtown Calgary to offset your land in Saskatchewan or Manitoba. But that's the way we move, is from farmer to real estate to investor. It's how we rotate through our career. And what we're saying is, if we're aware of that, we think we can speed that up and get into the boxes faster. So if you pull the stats, I double-checked them last night, it's just less than 10% of Canadians are entrepreneurs. So nobody said it was easy, right? The only job growth in Canada in the last approximately 10 years, if anyone's good at math, is government jobs, not entrepreneurs, right? So it is hard, right? Elon Musk got interviewed. It was one of my favorite interviews of his, and he says, so do you like being a CEO? Best job on earth? Meh. It's pretty awesome because I control my calendar. But you know what your number one job description is, an entrepreneur or the CEO? You're chief plumber. You fix shit. Every problem that somebody else can handle comes to you. And guess what? If it doesn't come to you, there's two reasons. One, you've built a really good crew, so you just get less problems, but you'll get the odd one. Or people don't just trust you to lead. They don't trust you to bring problems to. That's a problem. So what's the theory is that I think the next generation of farmers need to be different. They need to know their why so they can tell people as they're trying to hire them, so they can tell businesses they're starting to partner. So what do we do to be different? My CFO found this one, right? To be honest, he is a pessimist. He'd let me say that. You know, some people are optimistic. My wife always tells me when we disagree that she's just a realist. And my argument is as well, all you guys were coming up with your opinions. I just sold it and moved on, made money, right? So if the goal is to have a legacy, and like I said, that legacy can be you're passing an operating farm on with no family ownership. That legacy can be you're passing on debt-free land. You're going to collect a little bit of rent, lets you retire exactly how you want, and the kids can carry on. That could be you want to sell your land and invest it all in the S&P or some other stock. I don't care. But you've got your plan, right? I believe this is one way, to start thinking about where you want to be in 10 years. It's called the R factor question. I'd probably get crap from some of my crew because I actually just went and stole my own. So this was wouldn't have been 10 years ago. I did this one 4 years ago. The R factor question is, I want you to pretend it's 10 years from now. What does it look like? So what does 10 years from now look like? What are the weaknesses I need to be ready for? And what are the strengths I can build on? Right, so 4 or 5 years ago, my biggest ones, yes, there's acres in here, but my biggest one is a self-managing operation, right people, right seats. I'm going to talk about this later. It's called what we call the EOS system. It's a system that you can operate your business on. SOPs, which nobody likes doing, right? And we got a consulting arm. I was worried about geopolitical factors. I talk lots of time that policies are number one risk. So you can see government policy, geopolitical factors, two of my biggest risks 4 years ago. I'd say right now it's pretty close to right at the time. Is anyone else comfortable with our current policy or geopolitical? Geez, you can tell it's Thursday. Come on. Right? Human resources, I think you can always get better at. And we said hiring and retention were our two. Growth ceilings. So I always think as you grow, I don't care what your business is, you hit ceilings of where you need to find a way to grow yourself, right? So after you kind of dream about where 10 years is and look back, I think it makes it easier. What do I need to do today to get to where I want to be in 10 years? Because it doesn't matter that you dream about 10 years from now, right? That just has something to dream about. You actually have to do something today to get there, or it's a waste of time, right? Otherwise, just write a book. So once again, my CFO will probably be pissed because I just went and stole my own. This is a simple little document we have. Like I said, you could have a 20-page document, and it'll have, you need a strategy statement, you need a legacy, you need a vision, you need a mission, you need all this stuff. Just what are you chasing? It's your North Star. I told you guys already, I want to improve the land, the finances, community, and industry generation after generation, right? Our values, and I would urge you when you're thinking about values, don't write down values that you wish you were or that are just expected, right? Too many people just say, we work hard, we want to be respected, we do this. Well, if you don't work hard, you're probably not going to work for me. That's just part of the plan. So what is it that you kind of do a little bit different, or that's an internal joke, right? We always kind of look at our key people and what do they do different. That means we probably hired them because they fit our values. So we say win-win relationships. I like making deals, and I like making deals with the same people. So how can you make deals so that the next deal can be made? Because you have respect. It was negotiated fair. Can't isn't an option. We like to win. We don't quit. This one is driven almost completely with my dad, and a lot of people follow that, right? When things get hard, we find a way to rally around it and just get it done instead of just leaving it, right? Innovate and optimize, pretty explainable. And a growth mentality. My theory of growth is just, I think the future is going to be better than the past. And I do believe if you're not growing, you're dying. But I didn't say growing in acres. Growing in investments, growing in people, growing in vertical integration, right? There's a whole bunch of ways to grow. And that ties back to your why statement. So then, BHAG is stolen from a book called Scaling Up 2.0. It's a really fancy statement. Big, hairy, audacious goal. one of the best business books out there, and yes, that's the line they use. So we said to create an agriculture dynasty. I use the word dynasty for a succession plan, right? And we're big sports fans. So if you like sports, I mean, there's dynasties, the New England Patriots when Brady was there, Vince Lombardi's Green Bay Packers, right? My dad's a Canadiens fan, so I don't even want to admit it, but the Canadiens for a period of time. I'm a Lemieux fan, so I like to talk about the 90s Penguins. What's different? They're just a little bit better than everybody else for a long time. And that's what they wanted. They didn't do anything real crazy. They're just a little bit better. So once again, I go back that we can give all these ideas. They don't actually matter if you don't have your own why, right? And so this is mine. I said to you, I don't want to miss my kids' sports. They're 10 and 12 right now, and I say no to more now than I have in my entire life. In fact, once I found out that my daughter was sick and my son's hockey game was on today, I would have canceled if I didn't feel bad, because I'd rather be there. But what is it that you're going to say no to accomplish what you want? And for friends in the crowd, yeah, you can tell everybody I got married when I was 20 because I couldn't trick my wife anymore. So I had to get married young. So we'll go into time, brains, and money. So we're going to split this into simple facts, right? Time, I said the only way you can buy that back is people and process. Brains is how are you going to invest in yourself and in your leadership team to get better. And money is what are you tracking to make sure that things are going right in your operation. So human resources, Manitoba released this a couple years ago. The bottom line is the amount of people employed in agriculture. That's a problem. It's trending down. Last time I checked, there's still the amount of acres and head in Manitoba that there was before. I don't know if anybody else has seen this graph, but we don't have as many babies now as we used to. So we can't just hope that there's a great influx of babies that in 20 years are going to want to work for us. And for those of us that just say we can work harder, here's a nice little study for you. The graph on the far side is someone that slept less than 4 hours. The graph on my side is someone that slept 6 to 8 hours. And the orange is how much thinking their brain's doing. So working harder doesn't fix it either. So what are we going to do? Couple little baby steps. I would say the one thing is that we see with farms is number one, they say we can't hire people, and then number two, they say their job description is do whatever I tell you to do when I tell you to do it, and that you're going to have the exact same job for the rest of your life. And in a perfect world, I'd like to pay you $15 an hour. Sound familiar, anybody? No? So it's just a simple org chart. You can do it at any size of operation. So when you hire them, what are like the top 5 things they're going to do? I'm not saying there has to be 100. Like just the top 5. And you want to know what the bottom one could be? Assist everybody above you when they ask. Right? We talk about it lots at our operation. How do we transition from being mad when someone comes to ask for help, etc., to what if you walk into every situation and just say, how can I help? I don't care if you're the lowest person on the totem pole or the top, same attitude. If you got a few spare minutes, walk in and say, how can I help? That means that the 0.5 for everybody can be, how can I help? That means they can do everything. But in general, what are they going to do? There's a whole bunch of options for a farm. And the issue is right now, a lot of farms just have somebody in the gray box. They might have somebody in the green box, and all of those duties are in both boxes. Right? We do a few succession plans, and the one thing I find, probably part of the reason your kids coming home is because they aren't that of a leader. They actually kind of like to lead. You're a leader, and then we wonder why we butt heads, because we both want to make decisions. Right? So who's going to make what decisions? My example would be, and I mean we've been doing this for a long time now. I couldn't tell you today what the last price of fuel was or how much we bought. It's 100% on Louis' plate. I trust him. He's going to do his job. If he needs my help, he'll come ask. Otherwise, why do I care? It's just one more thing I have to think about. So just split up some of that stuff, right? And then a thing, I don't know if anybody's heard the RACI chart. It's called responsible, accountable, right? Consult and inform. So an easy thing to do when you get the task. So we'll talk about fertilizer. I buy all the fertilizer. I'm responsible for it. I'm accountable for it. I don't have to ask anybody's permission to do it, so I don't need to consult. But the one step I used to miss is I forgot to tell my dad when I did it. And it really pissed him off if he was at the retail on the week that next week and one of our neighbors said, hey, you guys just moved on a whole bunch of nitrogen, hey? I put him in a position that he didn't want to be in. And all I had to do was send a text out. Here's what we did today. Right? So who's responsible? Who's accountable? Do you have to ask for any permission first? And then who do you need to tell when you made the decision? Easy step one. Easy step two. Some of my guys are in the crowd, so they've heard me say this. They'll laugh. So I say that my favorite team member is young, broken, in love. Young, they want to work lots. Broke, they need a paycheck, so they keep coming back. And in love means they're probably not moving. It's that simple, right? But then you have to convince them to stay. So one of the ways to convince them to stay is how about we have a path. So we call this the journeyman farmer path. One day maybe I'll convince the SIAS to set it up just like an electrician. FCC and all you big companies, if you're in the room, you guys should fund it for us, where they can go in and get trained like an electrician to be a farmer. But like, what are the levels on your farm? So band 7 is me. Band 1 is some young guy that I got from on a co-op program from Moose Jaw or New Zealand. And here's how you move through the bands. And on our normal one, I'd show you all the dollars per hour at the bottom. And we show everybody this. Here's how you work your way up. And if you noticed, these bands overlap. See here and here? And I'll tell you why. When I was at MNP, I think big companies screw this up all the time. You'll get to a certain level where you're a great operator, whatever that is. In MNP, that's preparing financial statements. On a farm, it might be running an air seeder, right? And then what do? They take all the great operators and they promote them to be managers. What if they're horrible with people? A good operator should get paid more than an average manager. A great manager should get paid more than a good operator, because managers can handle teams of 3 to 6. That's that much more stuff getting done, right? So that's why there's some overlaps. But I think you have to show people a path of how they can keep moving. That's kind of all I had on people, because I didn't want to give too much, right? I think sometimes in people, I also think that we try too hard to think of game-changing things, right? Our benefits plan just copied MNP when I left, right? Our pension plan is because every business in town has a pension plan. I have a performance bonus that's tied to your salary, about 10%, and it's almost 8 to 10% guaranteed. And my crew knows, like, you're going to get almost 100% of that all the time, 90 to 100. And they say, like, some of them will say, like, why do you do that? Like, just give us all our money up front. No, because if you quit in the middle of harvest and screw me, I'm going to keep that money and I'm going to give it to everybody that stayed with me and got me through harvest. That's why. And if at the end of the year you're still here, I'm going to pay you because you deserve it. Magically, all the good team members are like, hey, that's actually a pretty good idea. If someone leaves in the middle of harvest, that sucks for all of us, right? Other little things. One of the better things we did, and I have ideas and then I actually forget I have ideas and then I get text messages that somebody just did them. So I said, right before seeding and harvest, I want the spouses to get gift certificates for Subway or groceries or whatever, and a little card from me saying, we know this is going to kind of suck. Thanks for sucking it up for us. Then they'll write it way nicer than that. I want a birthday present for them, sitting at the shop 2 or 3 days before their birthday, that their spouse that works for us can take home and give them to their birthday. And if they want to say it's from us, great. If they forgot to buy them a birthday gift and want to say it's from them, that's fine too. You would not believe how many messages I get from spouses to say, how did you have time to think about my birthday? I didn't. Somebody on my crew did. But we value what they're doing for our crew to be able to what they're doing in seeding and harvest. And so obviously the number one reason someone will leave your operation is because they're mad at the direct report. The second reason will be because their spouse doesn't like you. So I kind of want my people, if they're pissed off at me that day, to go home and say, geez, I might leave, and I want their spouse to say, no, they give me free meals at harvest and they buy me a birthday gift. You need to rethink this. And guess what? Travis is up here, so I'm going to say this. If their spouse is a teacher or a nurse or something, like, they feel really underappreciated right now. So if their husband is getting stuff and their employer's thinking about them, it is an honest topic of discussion. That's not a big deal. It's not $100 an hour. It's just a small thing. So if we move into brains, Jesus, I've been going on way too many rants here. When we go into brains, this is the one thing I think separates as you start moving into the CEO Everybody in this world gets so focused on the event and talking over and over about the event, when I think you need to automatically focus on the response. The event's already happened, right? If your kid threw a temper tantrum, if a tire fell off the air seat, or whatever you want, it's already happened. Just fix it and move forward, right? If it happens again, we probably should have put a process in place. If it doesn't happen again, it's a fluke. Who cares? Move on. Right? We joke that our only real problem on our farm is if they phone me and I say, geez, I've never seen that before. But it's not a problem. It just means a group of us have to get together to come up with a solution. Because if one of us have seen it before, that's just every day. Right? We've had a couple guys come work for us when we're running 24 hours, and we got mechanics and welders. We got parts on wheels. So we'll have major breakdowns at midnight. So that operator of the drill might go home. He'll help for a bit and then go home. And the next operator comes in at 4 and we're ready to go. And they're dumbfounded, right? The last farm they went on, that would have shut us down for 2 days. But it's because that crew of people can just do that. It just becomes normal. So what's the response you want to the events so that events aren't a big deal? This is some stuff from TPAP that I think if you want to focus on being a CEO, really important little statements, right? True competitive advantage. It was a statement by Jack Welch, the CEO of General Electric. They beat the market for years on end. And he said, like, the only truly sustainable competitive advantage is the ability to learn and adapt faster than everybody else. And in today's world with technology, data, things are changing fast, right? So how are you adapting? Strategic management, I just use Wayne Gretzky. What did Wayne Gretzky do that better than everybody else? He wasn't that big. Actually didn't have that good of a shot. He just always went to where the puck was going to be, not where it was. So what are you doing to go where the puck's going to be? Analyzing, I think you always need to analyze what's going well and what isn't going well, and then try to get better, right? Learning organizations, we've all seen the statement, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Probably if it's not broke, you just haven't looked hard enough. Like someone somewhere in the world's kicking your ass at it. And I don't mean at someone might not just be better than you at seeding, but the steps within seeding, right? Can they fill faster than you? Do they run a better pit crew to do the repairs? Were they better prepared? Do they train better? Continuously look for people that are doing it better than you. Continuous management improvement. The number one thing you can invest in is you and your management team. If you're not learning and you're tired and you're grouchy, everybody around you is the same, right? If you get to the point that you go to work and everybody around you is stupid, you should probably look in the mirror because you're the problem. And we've all been there, right? The fifth 16 or 18 or 20-hour day in seating, nobody's feeling that smart around you. You should probably just go to bed, right? Timing. So if you look at the top 5% of operations in any business cycle, the only thing that they do better than the top 25%, timing. They start a little better, they finish a little quicker, they hedge a little sooner. Volatility in canola markets, good marketers are finding a way to be 5% better. But part of that's luck too. They don't just wait to make a decision. If they think it's right, they make the decision. If they get new data that it's wrong, they change the decision. And then lastly, this was one of Danny Kleinfelter's statement, was that the future will always belong to those people that see the opportunities before everybody else. Right? So it's that fine line between bleeding edge and leading edge. And what do you have at your operation to be able to attack those ideas that somebody else might not? Why do I think it's important that we keep focusing on management and working your way to CEO and business practices? Really, this is just money invested in a market. And so fully invested for the whole time. You missed the 10 best days. On the far side, you missed the 60 best days. Kind of shows that, and this was from 93 to 2013. So in 20 years, sorry. So it just shows that compounding money really adds up, and it's the same on your operation. The other comment is Walmart. So the one thing we get screwed over in agriculture is we get one turn of inventory a year. Unless you have a second farm in the southern states or Argentina or wherever, you get one shot at it. It means you need to learn really fast. Walmart's learning 7, 10, 14, 20, 50 times a year depending on the product. And they can change it tomorrow. If you run a restaurant, people don't like that menu, you can change the menu tomorrow and find out if it works. It's a little tougher for us to do. When it comes to money, this is an old graph. We had pulled it out of all our Maverick Consulting data and the StatsCan data. So the average Western Canadian farm, this was from 06 to 2017. Obviously break-evens were even less then, it's worse now. The big line I want you to look at is this net income line, right? So 0 minus 50, 50. So if you actually put in money for management draws and rent on your land, the average Canadian farm makes less than $50 an acre. So it's really important to just be a little bit better. The bottom 25%, you can see where that green line is. They don't make money. Some people say, well, how are they still around? Well, their grandpa was rich. You have 10,000 acres that's bought and paid for, and you have to pay your grandpa zero rent. You can live for a long time. Rent, everyone's rent's different, so I'm just going to use 50, and everyone's going to say, Kristjan, that's too low. But 10,000 acres times 50, if you don't pay any land rent, and you look at your statements at the end of the year, you made $500,000, don't show your wife and kids, because you could have went to Hawaii, not worked, and made the same amount of money. That's why it can stay low for so long. But it's also why you have to be aware to fix that. Here's the top 25%. This was all on the same data, right? If you noticed in this whole time frame, they never once went under zero. That means they had a risk management plan, because I promise you at least once in there they had a disaster. The average is somewhere in the between 50 and 75. But $75 an acre is actually pretty good profit on a lot of farms, right? So if you, in today's world, it's a little different, but let's say we're shooting for 75, costs us $500 to grow the crop. Of that $500, we use half of it in debt. A $75 return on a $250 investment, it's not bad. I actually don't really want New York to know about it. You just need to do it over and over and over, right? And then preferably not just spend it all on machinery. None of us do that. This one, I just populated some numbers in one of our charts to show one of the things that really helped me when I was marketing, right, is we figured out our cost of production based on average yields and inputs, what we're going to be at per bushel, and then we added a 20% return. And if we hit 20% return, I should be selling some, maybe all. But I find that in marketing, we spend too much time trying to hit highs or hit this. Pick a number that you're comfortable with, right? A 20% return on that, right? It actually turns into significantly higher than a $75 an acre profit, which means that if I'm farming 2 or 3 or 4 years in one, I should probably sell some grain, right? Another spot to look on money, lots of people have heard my 24-hour cedar example. My CFO did this for one of his presentations, but simple math. So 1 drill, 4 humans, 24 hours. Yes, we tried to exaggerate it. We said the other drills only ran for 12 hours, 2 drills, 3 humans, $32 an acre of cost versus 60. If they're running 16 hours, it's like 32 versus 50, right? Just different ways to look at it. When I first went to TPAP, I thought running 24 hours was crazy. I told Kleinfelter that. You're nuts. It's too wet. It's too cold. He did that R-Factor question on me. Kristjan, it's 10 years from now. You're seeding 24 hours. What did you do? Well, we probably go run our minimum till unit out around the sloughs so we know where they are. Might invest a little bit in light bars. I'd have to train more people on the air seeder because I probably need to run it at night at start. Yeah, geez, it might be possible. Now we have people on our crew that actually prefer the night shift because it's quieter. You don't have all the other crazy people on the radio, right? Because the rock pickers and a bunch of the logistics people and the Harrow guys all go home. We really haven't looked back. And I argued. I didn't think it was possible. So when it comes to equipment, I get asked all the time, what's your opinion on it? Really, my opinion is every area has their own multiple, and build your equipment to that multiple. And that'll also tie back to what's your crop mix, right? So in my area, I used to say we'd like 80-foot drills. That's 8,000 acres. It was 1 drill, 1 sprayer, 2 combines, right? That was the S-Series combine. To be honest, now with the X's, we're more like multiples of 12,000, but we were 8. But what's your crop mix? Right, if you're going lots of peas and barley and lots of corn, you might be able to stretch combines way more. So your multiple's different, right? You're growing specialty crops. You might need more older combines and less newer combines because you have to switch them to be able to do the specialty crops. But know your multiple on your farm, and if you're not at that number, try to be there. Right? So if your multiple is 6,000 acres and you're 4, what I'm saying is, can you farm 6,000 without buying any more equipment, maybe just hiring 1 human? It'll make you a lot more money. And everybody's multiple is different. Machine utilization, we do a lot of work with deer, so it would blow your mind how many hours get put on a sprayer when the nozzles aren't on. And some easy ways to fix that is just have somebody run the mix rig so that when you get there, it's like 9 minutes to fill and you go back spraying. But we have a lot of money and equipment that sits there and idles. So that's another easy way to look at it. Data and execution, 8 minutes. Yeah. So data and execution, everybody thinks, is anyone sick of hearing all the stories about agriculture data and ag tech and how if I bought every ag tech, I'd have 100 bushel an acre canola and be rich and retired? Nobody else? Yeah, I'm really sick of it. Right? So to simplify it, one of the coaches I go to, think of ag data like blackjack. We already said you guys all like to gamble based on how much money you put in the ground. So first of all, play with the cards you have, not what you wish you had. So don't make decisions on hopes, wishes, and dreams. Make decisions on reality, right? What are we trying to do with blackjack? So what I say is I want odds on every decision on our farm. So I do love blackjack. If you've ever been in a casino, there's a nice little cheater card that's on the side. There's the odds on whether you should hit or stand, right, or double on every blackjack hand. That's what I want for our farm. So if I take my family on a vacation to Paris, my daughter wants to go to the Eiffel Tower, and it's the middle of harvest, and they know that the odds are 70% or better, Kristjan would decide, yes, I don't have to get a phone call. Just make the decision. If it's 50 to 70, you got to phone me. If it's under 50, say no. But every decision on your farm is based on odds, and you're all the same as me. So then use your data to just turn farming into blackjack. Yes, the dealer always has a card buried. It's called Mother Nature. But you still can make decisions based on odds. What do we do with some of this data? So this is just a simple example of our drills, total acres per hour and average speed, all our different operator crews. We try to match our strongest operators with our newest ones to train them. You know, people that are good at maintenance, people aren't. Average last year to current year, right? So we were better, but it was just a little bit drier spring. And to be honest, I'm not even worried about the little bit of variation. What I like is this creates a conversation. What did that drill do different? Did we have too many repairs on that drill? Do we need to trade that one off? Did this one train better? Do we need to have one of our best operators just go through all the drills to train better? You actually talk about it versus just guessing, right? And as you can tell, it wasn't just because of speed that created the acre difference. Because we tell that story too, right? If we want to hit 500 acres per day per drill, and you got a hot date on Friday night, I don't want you to speed the drill up. I want you to get somebody to come take your place. This is a couple other ways we use data. So I talked about EOS. So if you're looking for a system and you hate meetings, but you need to have some structure in your business, read the book called Traction or Good to Great. Not Good to Great. I can't remember it. There's a fable about it too. Look up Traction, Gino Wickman. EOS is called the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So you need a way to set some goals, to set some priorities, to have a cadence of meetings without having too many meetings. It's a really good system for small businesses, right? I've talked to lots of people about it. Voxer, everyone asks me what's the number one piece of technology on your farm, and I'll probably tell you Voxer. It's the same as WhatsApp. We implemented it years ago so we can, our seeding team's all on one chat, the whole team's on another chat. I don't like coming to the farm at 7:45 and seeing everybody around drinking coffee. So the update goes out the night before so everybody goes straight to work. We can visit with each other at lunch if we're in the office, right? But Voxer is where all of our team communication takes place, and partly that was selfishness. If it's a text, my wife and a couple of my family are at the top, and they're the only ones that come through to my phone. So if I get out of a meeting, I check Voxer first to make sure the farm doesn't need me for anything important, the chats I'm involved with. Then I check the text from my wife and a couple of family members, and then if I get to everything else, I get to everything else. But how do you prioritize it? The other thing is, how do you tell everybody that needs to know? Right? So if you have 2 or 3 people working for you, it's a real pain to have to text everybody individually or phone everybody individually. No, that team should all get updated. So we chose Voxer. As I said, WhatsApp's the same. And we liked it because it's iPhones, Androids, computers. You can do it on any. And then once again, I always say, don't think too technical all the time. The picture behind that is our whiteboard wall. It's a whole wall. The circles are our grain bins. The green circles are fertilizer bins. This little graph right here is all the months. If you could see these, it's our cash flow needs for that month. This is the grain sales and how much money it's going to bring. I literally just went and took a picture of it and put it in the slideshow. That's simple. You can see priorities listed for people. It looks like a real mess. Every person that comes to visit our farm, it's their favorite thing. Not the new tractor, not the bin yard, not visiting with me, the whiteboard wall. Simple. It's where we measure things. It's where we track things. Obviously, I'm a financial kind of geek, so I think tracking financials, once again, we got a data template. So I get this every month on our farm when we update our statements. So we have a weekly scorecard where I track things like hours worked, loads hauled, what cash flow is. But every month, I want to know land leverage, equipment leverage, building leverage, working cap, right? Very few farms go bankrupt. Bankrupt means you have no equity. They just run out of cash. So it's something we need to keep an eye on all the time, right? So what are you measuring for cash flow? What are you measuring for debt, etc.? I've got a few minutes left, so I'll go through the dynasty plan pretty quick. It's kind of my theory on succession and that we want to keep going. So I say that businesses are on a succession plan for the rest of their life. You should always be transitioning someone out and somebody in, and if you're not, you're probably not doing it right. But I never said they're going to take over, right? Someone's starting to slow down. Some of your managers are getting better. They might have your last name. They might not have your last name. I don't care. What are you transitioning? Now they go through, this is where all of the farms were when we started. Every business, you're a startup, you have no money. If something goes wrong, you're done, right? As you move along, you get stable. In the world of farming, you probably own some land. It might be mainly paid off. The next step is you might grow again, kind of professional. You might be vertically integrated. And it doesn't matter where you are in this, but it takes new skill sets at each piece, and where do you want to be? What I would assume, though, is we don't want to stay here forever, right? This is what creates heart attacks, creates drinking problems, right? Has way too many bankers as your friends because they're coming to see you all the time. Why do I think you need to look at it? It's just math, right? Whether we want to believe it or not, consolidation's happening. And so you're probably going to work your way up that chart even without trying. Just trying to tell you to be ready for it. And it's the same stats in the US. This is a simple little thing we use for succession planning. It's called an equity calculator. I won't show you everything, but there's 3 key things that I think you need to talk about in your succession plan. Labor, management, equity. Right? Who's doing the work? Time. Who's doing the management? Brains. And who has the money? So who owns the land and the equity? Right? So my argument is you should pay a 5% return on equity, whether it's the kids or the parents. Whether you pay it out, I don't care. Calculate it. Like you should pay land rent. Now, if land rent in your area is 100 and you're just going to calculate 50, good, I don't care. Pay it monthly. Parents, the reason I think you should do that is if things go a little sideways on the farm and your kids have to come ask you for $500,000 back, it means they had to ask you. They didn't just get to spend your money because things went sideways. It's a good problem. As I said, if the banker has the same last name as you, it's a lot better than if they don't, right? And then labor and management. Make sure everybody gets paid for their work they're doing. Right? And everybody, if you're running the seeder or running the combine as family members, it's probably the same pay. But then the real switch is the way you split profits is actually based on management. Who is the manager? What decisions are they making? How much of it are they managing? And you can start this. We've had people start this as early as kids being 16 years old, right? Dad and I went to 50-50 when I was like 24. But his land wasn't at risk. He was getting land rent. His equity wasn't at risk. He was getting equity. I was just making a lot of the management decisions. I'm not a big believer in sweat equity. It'll be here when I'm done. You'll get it when I die. It's a real easy way to piss people off. Right? Be goal congruent. Right? I got people on my farm that are in this profit split that don't have my last name. We've set some of them up a bit different, right? It's a percentage of their salary, not a percentage of total profits, but it's based on profits. Be goal congruent. Well, there you go. 401. That was my last slide. As I said, I'm not really big on everybody doing it the same. Everyone's going to be different. I just focus on make sure you know why you're getting out of bed every morning, because if you don't, it's going to be real hard to get out of bed one day. and find a way of what makes you different. Because everybody's a little bit different, whether that be in your values, how you're gonna expand, what your growth's gonna be, what your plan is for succession, and then just get after it. Other than that, don't have much. I can take questions. I'll be around for a little bit too if you just want to talk to me. And thanks for coming out.